Hello, and welcome back to the West Ham Network. I'm Anton, and I hope you are all well. No DJ Russie B for the West Ham Daily today, but your man Anton bringing you the latest news. And there's lots of news. There wouldn't be news if it wasn't for West Ham. But today's news is a bit of an interesting one, isn't it? It's with the news that West Ham, with the title that I've said, there is transfer hope for West Ham as FIFA have now officially opened a 1 month window to sign players who are at clubs in the Ukraine and at Russia. Now, I can see people in the chat already saying no chance we'll sign anyone, but the point of the matter is that there is hope that West Ham, clubs can now start to negotiate bringing players in. So West Ham fans, of course, weren't happy at the fact that the club failed to sign any players in the January window with so much to play for. David Moyes has had a shallow squad, as we know, at West Ham, and it has started to show in recent months. Moyes admitted that he is frustrated at the lack of options, and he said that he'll have to push his players to breaking point. West Ham desperately need more options up front and in creative sense, 100%. And now that there is no transfer hope for West Ham, as like I said, FIFA have confirmed a 1 month window to sign players from clubs in the Ukraine and Russia as a result of Putin's invasion. So let me read to you some of the rules and regulations. Following the escalation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has led to ongoing and distressing humanitarian crisis, the Bureau of the FIFA Council has decided, in coordination with UEFA and after consultation with various stakeholders, to temporarily amend the regulations on the status of transfers of players in order to provide legal certainty and clarity on a number of matters. So let's move on to the next part. Concerning the situation in Ukraine, the order to provide players and coaches with the opportunity to work and receive a salary and to protect Ukrainian clubs unless the parties to the relevant contract explicitly agree otherwise. All employment contracts of foreign players and coaches with clubs affiliated to the Ukrainian Association of Football will be deemed automatically suspended until the end of the season in Ukraine, which is the 30th of June, 2022, without the need for any action or from the parties to this effect. In order to facilitate the departure of any foreign players and coaches from Russia, in the event that clubs affiliated to the Football Union of Russia do not reach a mutual agreement with their respective foreign players and coaches before or on 10th of March 2022, and unless otherwise agreed in writing, the foreign players and coaches will have the right to unilaterally suspend their employment contracts with the FUR affiliated clubs in question until the end of the season in Russia, which is also in 2022. The suspension of a contract, as per the paragraphs like I've mentioned above, will mean that players and coaches will be considered out of contract until the 30th of June 2022 and will therefore be at liberty to sign a contract with another club without facing consequences of any kind. Now, loads and loads and loads of interesting things that we can look in here. Now, listen, let's not beat about the bush. The circumstances over in the Ukraine are terrible situations. And obviously what FIFA have done is they've announced these regulations to support and to help these people in order to keep their employment up and support their families. And I think it's a really good decision. But what it has done is given clubs around Europe the opportunity. So I'm reading comments in there. The opportunity to, a second chance. You could really call. Is it a second chance for the window? I don't know. I mean, there is a plethora of talent at some of the clubs in Russia and Ukraine, which would ensure and surely improve West Ham's squad between now and the end of the season in the race for European spot. Now, listen. We've been there several times. We have been there several times throughout this, particularly throughout this transfer window, and we've seen lots and lots and lots of players that West Ham were interested in who we felt that would fit the bill for exactly what they're looking for, but we didn't go across and sign them. But now knowing what we know with potential short-term injuries to the likes of Jared Bowen, short-term injuries to the likes of Declan Rice, and the lack of depth, I wonder if in hindsight Moyes may start to revisit this. So you've got Ukraine clubs Shakhtar Donetsk, Dynamo Kiev and Dnipro. They're awash with talent with a host of exciting attackers, including several from Brazil. They have a bloody load of players from Brazil that play for the club. And in Russia, Zenit St. Petersburg and the Moscow clubs, they also notably have players which could interest David Moyes and West Ham. Two players, though, that we could look at are Brazilian attacking duo David Neres and Tete of Shakhtar Donetsk. Neres is 25. He's only joined Shakhtar in January from Ajax for around £15 million, and he's quick, skillful playmaker who can play in the left, right, and central attacking roles. He has 4 goals, including 1 in the Champions League and 2 assists for Ajax from 5 games this season before transferring to the Ukraine club. And Moyes obviously needs more attacking gear, and Neres would be potentially one of the perfect fits that could suit West Ham right now. And he's managed to flee with other, apparently the rumours are that he's managed to flee with other players to the neighbouring Romania. So he'll obviously be keen to advance his career as much as he can. And as quick as he can. Another player that West Ham are looking at or could look at is his Brazilian teammate and fellow Brazilian Tete. And maybe we could bring, and remember this deadline is the April the 7th. We have to look at bringing players in before the April 7th deadline. He certainly has an eye for goal. He's got 9 in 11 games this season, as well as 1 in the Champions League from 4 appearances. And it is a one-off opportunity for West Ham, which we surely should not pass up. What do you think? Get your comments in. Let me know your thoughts. It'll be a race against time with the 1-month window closing, like I said, on April the 7th. We're going to hope for the head of recruitment that Rob Newman's working on it already, a comprehensive dossier on some of the top players in these 2 leagues. You would think that he's already kind of got his mindset on all of the leagues throughout Europe and potentially has been scouting these 2 particular leagues. So if at any moment something presents itself to the club, we can be one step ahead, and that's where you hope West Ham are as a whole. I'm going to jump into comments and see who's kicking about and see what your thoughts are on any of these players. Are there any players out there that potentially could come to West Ham? Now, there is an interesting one for West Ham to look at, a player who currently plays for West Ham, who's currently on loan from Spartak Moscow, and that's Alex Kroll. Now, what's interesting about the Alex Kroll situation is he is on loan to West Ham, and he's not been playing as of late. Now, what we don't know and what we're waiting to find out is, would he qualify under this rule? Because his parent club, who are, what we understand, paying some of his wages, would he then qualify for a potential move? Now, I don't know. I don't think it will happen, but it could be that he may have to, or could, look into this rule and use it to his advantage, which might give him a club, etc. But we all know what Moyes is like and doesn't want to get rid of players and wants to rely heavily on the squad he's got. So get your comments in. Let me know your thoughts on what you think. Peter, quadruple X, transfer hope for West Ham. Surely not. But there is, though, Peter. There really is. The situation really is that these players will need to find other clubs. And you're talking about a lot of players. And, why would West Ham not dip their toe into the market and have a look around at some of these players? There's so many quality Brazilian players there. Victor Moses is playing out. I'm not saying bring him back. I'm just saying there are so many quality players. And Victor Moses has actually been a very good player as of late as well. Greg Thomas, no chance we sign anyone. Moyes needs 3 months to look at a player first. But you would hope, though, Greg, you would totally hope that we've already done our due diligence on some of the European leagues. And if we were after Kroll, when we were after Kroll, we would have to have done our due diligence on teams like Spartak Moscow. So we may have a record of some of the players there already. And now that they're going to become made available, that's what's going to make it a bit more interesting. And you do make a valid point here. Moyes does need 3 years, potentially. He does. Only one we will sign is Ethel, the tea lady from Orient, after. So afternoon all. Hope you are well, Mark Alexander. Good to see you, mate. Crosshammer. Hi, everyone. Good to see you too. Scott Miller is saying, I bet Moyes will leave it until the deadline day. But I'm not saying we have to dip our toe into the market. I would like West Ham to dip our toe in the market. We could absolutely be doing with strength and depth. And you're telling me there's not a single player from those two leagues that we could be keen on and could really add value to the club. If it means that we're getting a breather somewhere, I'd be intrigued to see what the rules and regulations are around bringing a player in if they've had European experience this season. Does that mean they can't play in the Europa League? Of course, West Ham travel to Seville tomorrow, playing on Thursday. So that will make it interesting reading and may have an impact. Or will Moyes be happy with the small squad that he's got? Because he's got till April the 7th to work this out. So by April the 7th, we will know if we've still going to be playing in the Europa League and will we need even more strength and depth? And at that point, is he going to bring in players to strengthen that opportunity, or is he going to bring in players to strengthen the Premier League opportunity, or is he going to stick or twist? Peter Goldlish, life's matter. They do, mate. They absolutely do. Mark Alexander says Zuma, Sufal, Souček, Bowen, Moyes will only sign the right players. Are people missing the days of over 30s on a last payday? Absolutely. And there is that element in Russia, but the Russian league does host, and the Ukrainian league does host a whole plethora of quality footballers, and they're not all over the age of 30. I've just named to you two there, Tete and Neres, two quality young Brazilian players plying their trade, of course. And the thing is, in Russia and in Ukraine leagues, they do tend to pull in quite a lot of the Brazilian players. And I mean, these players are Brazilian internationals. So, I don't know. West Ham Network, there is a list of players available on Wikipedia. Well, that's a good point. I wonder if I should try and bring that up for you then. And we can have a look and see what players are Russian and Ukraine players available. And we can talk through them as well. I'll see what we can do and find it. Derry Moffat is saying, I wonder if Kroll has a twin brother that it's the bill. We could sign him and not play him. But, again, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Kroll situation as well. Bonnie Hammer, never going to happen. Moyes won't sign players in the month of January. Why would he do it now when instant decision will be required? But Bonnie, I get it, and I know we're used to that. But the thing we have to maybe put some hope on is that Rob Newman, has already done his due diligence of the league. So if an opportunity presents itself to West Ham, then we should be able to take that opportunity with two hands. So the question I would ask back to you and even to David Moyes is, if you're talking about a whole host of football clubs, football players that are available, and you're telling me not one of them suits West Ham's style, not one of them from the amount of players that they are, then for me, there is something wrong there. But we do know that he doesn't bring in players just for the sake of doing it. I'm just trying to see if I can find that list, but I can't seem to find that list. John, if you can put the link in, I can talk about it when we go on. What about Lingard? God. I mean, listen, the rumours again today are kicking about Rashford from Manchester United. But I think what we should do as West Ham fans is when we take information in, we treat it like a pinch of salt. And we can look at what he can bring to the club. There's no ifs or buts about it. Rashford will be a fantastic player for West Ham, especially in the summer. But we're not going to be the only club interested in him. There's going to be several European clubs all around the world, high-profile clubs that are looking at him. You're already hearing rumours about PSG sniffing around Rashford, and you can see the style. I'm not saying he's the exact same style or player as Mbappe, but he's that tricky, fast, pacey player as well. Mark says limited loan, large fees, and would some of the quality of players be cup tied, which is a great point. And we need to obviously investigate this. And obviously, these are new rules set by FIFA as well. Mihailo, Jurovic, Larson, Neres, Fernando, Bozuzuka, I'd take a striker from Russia. More chance of my wee turning signing anyone. Mikey, hope you're well, mate. Good to see you. Let's pray. Absolutely. Bonnie Hammer. More chance of Tim Cahill being signed, and he's 42. Remember, we were linked to him as well. I think he's got some kind of role at Everton, and they're not doing so well. Transfer window, you said, Sullivan, we were inquiring whether we can send players the other way. We need some new heads after the injuries. Mikey saying it's such a weird situation. The idea of profiting from a situation in Ukraine feels weird. But the thing is it? I mean, let's look at the rules. I mean, they've kind of gone down the humanitarian legislation. So they're saying that the escalation in the invasion of Ukraine, which has led to ongoing distress and humanitarian crisis, the FIFA Council has decided the coordination with UEFA and the consultation from various stakeholders to amend the regulations that states in transfer of players. And they means, like I said, they can cancel their contracts and suspend them until the season ending in Ukraine, which is the 30th of June 22. And that's without any need for action from the parties to the effect. And it's the same with the Russian Federation, the 30th of June 2022. So the suspension of a contract, as per the paragraphs above, will mean that the players and coaches will be considered out of contract until the 30th of June. So what they're doing is they're protecting the player and their families. And I think it's a right decision by them. Now, of course, it plays into the hands of loads of European clubs. And I get your mindset there, Mikey, but what else are these players going to do? They're not going to be able to play football. And it shows you that there's much more dangerous matters to really consider as well. We can let Kroll go, surely. Well, there's always going to be legalization as well. It depends on how much the club are paying for the contract. It depends if the club are willing to let him go, and depends if West Ham want to bring another player. But I mean, West Ham right now letting a player go at this early stage, with the lack of squad depth that we've got, I don't see it, Don. To be honest, I really, really don't see it. Smeagol 316 signed Neres, Cladinho, Malcolm, Laxalt, Tete, all play in Ukraine and Russia. We're limited to 2 players, Anton. Best let people know. Absolutely, we are. We're only limited to bring in 2 players. Each club is only limited, like you said there, to bring in 2 players. Mandy, hope you're well. Good to see you. Felt the same way. Seems wrong to me. It's interesting, though, isn't it? It's interesting. But then the question I would ask to you is, what would happen? What would happen with those players if clubs from around Europe or around the world can't bring those players in? What happens with them? You know, you're hearing the stories and you're reading the things about the players that are the Brazilian players that fled to Romania and just to get out of the situation. And what do the clubs pay the players' wages, etc.? So unless there's an agreement in place with those players, then they would be going as out of contract, and then those players are free to go and play somewhere else. Yep, you can only sign 2. If Kroll is the answer, what is the question? There you go. Pity we couldn't get Jason instead of Moyes. Harley, the salami. I don't miss the days of over 30s on a payday, but when you're thin, they can do a job. They can, but we have got a history of bringing in a lot of those players that have really not added value to the squads. I mean, you could questionably say Zabaleta gave us something for a couple of seasons, and we've got a whole list of players who did that and were absolute fortune for the club, but they came here for the last payday, really, didn't they? John McCarthy wasn't sure, 2 or 3 cheers. To Mitch Kiev, 25 years old, centre-back, solid as a rock. See, people are coming out with all these names. Moyes would probably go for 2 goalkeepers if we were very short in that department. Yes, we are. Not. The clubs in Russia and Ukraine can't afford to pay foreign players' wages anyway. Anton, do you think it's realistic getting players from Russia and Ukraine, especially after Vlasic and Kroll roles so far? Yeah, I can't see why it's not. There's a whole host of players here, G Woods, and it's something that could, you know, what it has done is it's given an opportunity to West Ham and an opportunity to Moyes and an opportunity to Rob Newman to reinvestigate the transfer window and see, is there people we could have brought in and would have brought in? Do we have, I mean, when you're a scout, right, you don't just scout one league. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I'm not a scout, but for me, your role is to scout as many leagues as you possibly can. So West Ham, we know, have had a keen interest in Alex Kroll. We brought Alex Kroll into the club. He played in the Russian league, Spartak Moscow. So we've obviously done our due diligence on Alex Kroll. Now, it's not worked out so far, but they would have done due diligence because they wouldn't have just brought him in for the sake of it. I know we can talk about agents Suchek and agents Sofal, but they've brought those players into the club, which means they've looked at the club, they've looked at the league, they've looked at his games. They must have notified and seen what other players are capable of doing. I wouldn't be surprised that they have got a list of players that they would be keen on. And if they, like I said, if they came up, then why would you not go for them? Bonnie, I think this is a limited to foreign players. Asman from St. Petersburg could make the jump, but we don't need him. Or there you go. He's no longer in Russia. He's gone to Bayern Leverkusen. Two players in. Simple. No, I think it is. I think it's a simple process. I don't see the harm in finding players that can pass the test that what Moyes is looking for, but bringing them in and can they add value? Can they add strength and depth? It just could be what West Ham need at that moment. Yep, he did go to Germany. Would have loved him at West Ham. He is quality, absolutely. Good afternoon. What's your prediction Europa League on Thursday, Sam? From Sam. I mean, Sevilla look like they've got a whole host of injuries, Sam, as well. So they're struggling in several departments, but there's going to be no mean feat. We're going to Seville in Spain against a team that's second in the league, I believe they are just currently. And yeah, I think it will be a really strong interest to the neutral fan. I think it'll be a good game of football. I think West Ham can definitely turn up and rise to the occasion 100%. He wasn't available, if you believe Moyes from Epic Hash Time. Anton, who would you like us to sign? Honestly, mate, these are the two players I've got a keen interest in. Neres, formerly of Ajax, a quality young Brazilian player. He's quick, he's enthusiastic. He's skillful playmaker who can play in the left, right, and central attacking roles. It gives us another option, and we know that David Moyes likes that kind of nine role. That player who, the false nine, and he can add to that. He may be a short-term solution to offer us what we've lost in the Jesse Lingard kind of mindset. Like I said, he had 4 goals, including 1 in the Champions League and 2 assists for Ajax from 5 games this season before he transferred over to Shakhtar Donetsk in the Ukraine. So I think he would be one that I would be keen to have a look at. And then the next one would be Tete. Like I said, he's 22 years old. He plays as a second striker. So there you go, a second striker. And he can play as an attacking midfielder. So he does, again, everything on the tin. Tete is a player that can sit back, can go onto the wings, can work hard for the team. And he has an eye for goal with 9 in 11 league games this season, as well as 1 in the Champions League from 4 appearances. So he's got a good pedigree. He's got an excellent goal scoring record for a player, 31 goals in 108 appearances, playing as a midfielder or a second striker. There are 2 players there that I think West Ham could absolutely be doing with, and they could definitely add value to our squad 100%. I would still take Ibrahimovic if he became available. Honestly, the lad is just mental. The lad, I mean, the difference between West Ham bringing in players who are over the age of 30 and just ruling out if a player becomes available and he is over the age of 30, we can't just rule out players like that because you need to have experience in the squad. You need to have experience in the team, and that totally fits with a lot of the younger players. I'm not saying I would bring in Ibrahimovic, although I still think he probably could do a job in the Premier League. Scott Miller, also, how fit would the players be? It could take a while for them to get up to speed. Well, they have been playing, mate. It's just that they haven't, obviously, for a little while. So I think some of these Brazilian lads are more than capable of making the step into the Premier League. And you could always find a diamond in the rough as well. Definitely, I need a centre-back and a striker too. Mark Alexander, left wing and striker, if there are any available. I don't know anything about the Russian and Ukraine leagues. Listen, I'm not saying I do as well, but what happens is when this situation presents itself, you hear of a couple of players, and the 2 players I've mentioned, Neres and Tete, obviously coming from the pedigree of Ajax, the Ajax system, the Brazilian internationals. You kind of pick up on some of these players as well. So they're really kind of, there's a several list of players out there that you could take a keen interest in, but those 2 particularly the ones that we can have at. Does that mean we could get these players on free transfers, or we must pay a fee? Well, this is the situation, and this is how we can read between the lines here. The coaches will be the players and coaches will be considered out of contract until the 30th of June 2022, and will therefore be at liberty to sign a contract with another club without facing consequences of any kind. So no fee would have to be transferred across to any of the players. Apparently, Neres has temper issues. I mean, apparently so, but does he? I mean, who hasn't in their lifetime? You could say that Arnautovic had temper issues that we know about, but Moyes seemed to get the best out of him. Lingard came with issues, and Moyes got the best out of him. So it puts things into perspective, and you never know. Afternoon, Pete. James, how you doing, mate? You well? Good to see you. Good choices. Yes, Migo. Hopefully they are. Rudiger still available for free? No. Are you talking about Rudiger from Chelsea, mate? Are the availability of these players just a 6-month loan only? As it stands, it looks like it is. As it stands, it looks like it is, but I wouldn't be surprised. Listen, I don't want to get political, but you look at the situation that's happened on in the news, and this can go and grow arms and legs and get out of control. What they're trying to do is temporarily resolve an issue with players that can't play football right now and give them a safe haven and an opportunity to, you know, progress their career and be safe with and still earn a wage, etc. So it could be a small. They're out of contract for up until the June of 2022, but we can obviously revisit that, I suppose, depending on how the world pans out with this current circumstances. Yes. Harley in the summer. Yes. I'd love Zlatan. I don't think you're the only one. Absolutely. Jay Woods, Jesus Neres just signed for Shakhtar for 15 million. Back in January, he did. But you need to remember, Jay Woods, he can leave because of the new rules that are coming in here. He left from Ajax to go to Shakhtar back in January. It was only a recent fee. He's not played many games, but already he finds himself in a situation where he might have to, he's going to be leaving the club temporarily to go and get some football. And for me, I think he's one that we should definitely be looking at. Hopefully it wouldn't be like Zaza situation again. He didn't want to play for the club. Absolutely not. I don't see it being like that. But for me personally, two players, like I said, I've looked at Neres, Brazilian international player, young lad, 25. He only joined Shakhtar Donetsk, like was mentioned in the chat, from Ajax for £15 million back in January, but he finds himself already having to move clubs due to the situation out in Ukraine. And then Tete is the other player, his teammate, his Brazilian teammate, 22 years old, can play as a striker and can play as a skillful playmaker in the midfield. And he's got a reasonably prolific goal-scoring record, an excellent goal-scoring record, 31 goals in 108 games for him. And that is exactly who I'd like West Ham to go into the market and try and bring in. Anyway, that brings it into our daily show for today. If you are interested in becoming a member, please do click on the membership option. If you are interested in subscribing to the channel, hit the subscribe button, move across there, hit the bell notification. That will then notify you when we do have a show going live. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that today. I mean, it's not a great situation. I'll be honest with you. It's not a great situation. We had to report it because that is the scenario that we're in. We're in a situation we're in where players are going to be leaving the club and West Ham may have an option to bring them in. It's not great under the greatest of circumstances, but if it helps out these guys and it's a kind of win-win situation for the club, the player, and the club that West Ham are taking, or any club are taking the players from, then so be it. But there are going to be players out there that definitely would suit our system. So long may that continue. And hopefully we can, if we can, and if Moyes wants to dip into the market, then do it, strengthen the squad and see what happens until the summer. But we just have to wait and see what happens moving forward. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Stay safe, everyone. And we'll see you for the Hammers headlines around 5 o'clock. Come on, you Irons.
like a family tree.